Some banned books are just the worst. Let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Rachel, and today I have a very special video for you. Some banned books are just the worst to me, and maybe to you, and maybe to some of your favorite book reviewers. I asked a vast amount of my fellow reviewers and some of my friends to chime in to tell me their least favorite banned book today. They're here to tell you about a book that has been a target of censorship, either challenged or banned, but it's one that they didn't like, but they're here to tell you why they still think that it should be available on shelves, because subjectivity should not be the determining factor in which books are available for other people. I'm very grateful for everybody participating in this today. I really want the book community to start talking about book censorship as much as possible because the problem is getting worse. But I also want people to talk about it with accuracy, giving as much information as possible. So I specifically asked everybody to help me demystify the conversation and unmuddy the waters by saying where these books are banned or challenged and why, and if they can find out by whom. Because when you learn those last two pieces, the bigger problem that is censorship in the United States becomes clear, and it's alarming, and you should be alarmed. Now, before I let everybody else take it away, I'm gonna define some terms here for you so that we're all on the same page before we proceed, because I don't want anyone leaving uneducated comments like these down below. Let me help you out with that, since apparently a lot of people need that. Book banning does not mean completely made unavailable. Book banning is a particular term. The word ban is a part of it, but it is not the only part of it. Book banning has its own definition. It has never been defined in such a minimal way. Book censorship is a spectrum of actions. People challenge their books at a local level first to try to get them removed from their local community, only as a stepping stone. When those challenges are successful, they will work their way up from a school to a school district, to a state, to a federal level. It never happens all at once, it always happens in steps. A book challenge is an attempt to restrict or remove materials based upon the objections of a person or a group. The first step towards a ban is a book challenge. They are typically done by a formal form provided by a school or a public library or a district. Here is an example of a challenge form filled out by resident county book banner Bruce Friedman of Clay County, Florida, who you will hear brought up in the context of this book has been banned by Clay County, Florida several times throughout this video. A person fills out this challenge in order to restrict the content from a particular school, but typically they want it removed from an entire school district. Sometimes the outcome is that the book is removed from a school. Sometimes the outcome is that the school board will vote to remove it from the entire district. It depends on the process county by county, district by district. Book banning is defined as a form of censorship that occurs when private individuals or government officials or organizations remove books from libraries or school reading lists or bookstore shelves because they object to their content, ideas, or themes. It does not have to be all of those people, all of those groups, or all of those places. The key word in that definition is or. Ban a book from one place and it is a ban. A ban is a ban is a ban. They always start at local levels first. If you understand how a dry county works, you understand how a book ban works on a local level. Now you might say, why allow people to add clips to this video and bring into the conversation books that have not been banned but just challenged? Because challenges are not nothing. Failed challenges are still attempts at bans, still attempts at censorship. And they speak to this broader issue of civilians forming groups, attempting to install themselves as the arbiters of what is good and appropriate and what is bad and inappropriate based on their own subjective feelings, and trying to enact that onto other people. It's also very revealing when you read the challenge forums, even for the challenges that fail, because you will learn that yes, people are trying to get books removed just because a side character in a book had two moms, or because they didn't like that different kinds of families were represented, or they didn't like that these real-life penguins who were male raised a chick together. Just because a challenge fails does not mean that the intent is not there. And a person only needs to get into a position of power in order to turn that intent into law. You should pay attention when other people reveal themselves to be attempting to prevent yourself or your children from accessing information and media. Personally, I want to know when people are trying to enact their will upon my children, even when they fail. Those failed challenges often speak to blatant bigotry, and I want to know about that because I want to protect myself, my kids, and my community from that. Similarly, when proposed bills that are horrible fail, I want to know about them so I can know who is in positions of power. I want to know about the bigotry that they hold, and I want to make a plan of action to protect myself and my community. Popping back in here on a different day to say something else. I recently did a most favorite banned books video like this with other creators, but it was important to me to do least favorites as well for a couple of reasons. Number one is spending time at my local children's school board, the one for my kids, as well as two counties next to me, as well as the situation that's going on in my neighboring county, Pasco County, with their public library situation. What I have learned is that people think that their subjective opinions on books mean that if they are uncomfortable, everybody else has to be uncomfortable and therefore not have access or have restrictions restricted access. And the other reason is that in the book community, when we talk about books that we do not like, there are a lot of people making a very bad faith argument that if you do not like a book, its contents, its message, and you say that on the internet, that is somehow equivalent to advocating for its censorship. What I am trying to do with this video is show that conversation is nuanced, including when we do not like things. It is okay to not like things. It is not okay to make laws based on subjectivity. We should be able to say when we don't like things. We should have that right. Now, if you're just being homophobic, the consequences of free speech are that you're going to get called out for being homophobic. But you do not have the right to make laws based on your homophobia, and you definitely don't get to opt out of other people telling you, hey, you're a bigot. But so much of what you see at school board meetings is just people standing up and saying, I am uncomfortable with the contents of this book. Therefore, we need to change the laws to center my comfort. This includes people who haven't even read the book. I encourage them to read the book. I encourage them to talk about their discomfort. And that's what I'm hoping that we can do today. Sometimes we don't like books, and that is okay. It is not okay to then censor that content. What you will see is that bigots are birds of a feather who flock together. Like a virus, they take each other's bigotry and they spread it. So while measures might fail in one county or in one state, their friends in positions of power in other counties and states will literally copy their homework and try in their own communities to enact laws based on that bigotry elsewhere. We must first know about this problem in order to combat it. One reason why I wanted to get so many community members in on all of these collaborative videos that I'm doing on book banning is because another thing that censorship advocates have successfully done is perpetuate this lie in the public that the only people who care about keeping books on shelves are groomers and pedophiles, and that they're only trying to get porn out of schools. They've successfully created this narrative that on the one hand, you have parents on the right wing who are just trying to get porn out of schools, and on the other hand, you have the American Library Association, Marxists, communists, pedophiles, and groomers with no kids all working together to try to get porn in the hands of kids. And what they've done in order to do this is redefine words and terms. So they have redefined diversity, equity, and inclusion, critical race theory, Marxism, communism, woke, and yes, they have redefined book banning to only mean completely unavailable everywhere by federal law, which is not how it's defined. But what they have really done successfully recently is to not only redefine terms, but reclassify people. If you're not a parent who agrees with them, you're not a parent. Your voice doesn't matter. But in reality, librarians are also parents. Authors are also parents. People in the ALA are parents. People in your local community are parents. And us parents are also taxpayers. Taxpayer is a word that gets thrown around quite often. It is important that all of us speak up and talk about how censorship affects us. And it's especially important that those of us who are parents do right by our kids in our communities. Otherwise, these people who have decided that we are not parents who are worthy of speaking will speak for us. I'm going to save my least favorite banned book for the end. So without further ado, here's a bunch of readers and the banned books that they think are the worst. Also, everybody's socials will be linked below, so please go follow.
Hey, what's happening? My name is D, and my least favorite banned book is the manga series Assassination Classroom. Volumes 1 through 7 have been banned in Escambia County, Florida. I believe they've been challenged or banned in other counties as well. I can't stand this series. I hate this series. Manga, anime, it doesn't matter. I hate it. I think that the manga has a really hard time deciding when it wants to be serious and when it wants to be silly. And because of that, the serious and the silly moments don't hit as hard as they could if it could just make up its mind. The humor is absolutely not my kind of humor, and there's some fan service-y type moments that are just definitely not for me. That doesn't mean that it's not for anybody. This manga was written and drawn to be enjoyed by middle school aged boys. And I think if I had read this when I was that age, I might have enjoyed it more. I don't really know because I don't remember what my humor was at that age. It was a long time ago. And if my niece or nephew were to ask me for manga recommendations, I definitely wouldn't recommend this because I don't like it, but I think that there are some valuable lessons and tackling of themes in this series. I think the manga tries to tackle important themes like identity and believing in yourself, living up to your full potential, and the importance of education. I think it's pretty corny. It's kind of cringe. It's pretty stupid. And it's really weird. But I think that this is a good opportunity for parents to kind of engage with media that their kids are engaging with and teach them discernment skills and critical thinking skills. And this is a good opportunity for young people to decide for themselves what they want to read. And even though I wouldn't recommend this manga, I don't think it's my place to take away that choice from anybody.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm a model who's read, and my least favorite banned book is probably Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. This book is currently banned in Virginia due to dark themes and violence. Shatter Me is a young adult romantic dystopian thriller that centers a group of teenagers with supernatural powers as they try to take down the corrupt government only known as the Reestablishment. And our main character is Juliet, whose touch causes extreme pain and in prolonged cases death. Now, why I don't like this book is because I think that the main character's voice is extremely whiny and underdeveloped. The love triangle feels forced, and one of her love interests is like the most boring white bread man I've ever seen in my life. And as the series progresses, it feels like she's both trying to do too much, but also that like she didn't plot far enough ahead, so it kind of just gets weird after the third book. But I don't personally think this book should be banned just because I find the main character annoying and whiny. Even though I don't connect with it, the writing style in this is something that I haven't seen in any other book up to this day. It's very unique, and the language itself is very accessible to a young audience. And it explores themes like romance, self-discovery, power, realizing there's hope even though you feel weighted down by the world, and realizing that your voice means something. So you're banning a book about a young generation taking down a corrupt government that they've grown tired of? Interesting. I do not think this book should be banned because even though I personally don't like it, I think it still deserves to have a place on the shelf.
Hey y'all, I'm Ray, aka Ray the Reviewer on Instagram and TikTok, where I post diverse book recommendations across the board from children's to middle grade to young adult to adult, fantasy, speculative fiction, contemporary, graphic novels, basically any genre, any age category. One of my least favorite banned books is Looking for Alaska by John Green. It's a story of teenagers making bad decisions and having crushes on each other and falling in love. And I found one of the characters insufferable. It's one of the only, if not the only John Green book that I've ever read and not finished because I just couldn't. And does that mean that that book deserves to be banned because these teens are making reckless decisions and they're thinking about how attracted they are to one another? No.
Hi, I'm Emma Skies, and my least favorite banned book. Look, according to PEN America, Colleen Hoover books have been banned 147 times in a single year across 24 different books. Now, I'm a Colleen Hoover hater to my very bones, but how am I supposed to talk about how bad her writing is if it's being pulled off of shelves? I need people to hear what I'm telling them about her atrocious line-level writing, about her over-reliance on trauma shock value to mask any attempt at a cohesive plot or coherent character development, and then be able to confirm for themselves. I don't need anybody to take my word that it's bad. They can go check for themselves, and then we can discuss. Just because I think Colleen Hoover's work sucks does not mean I rejoice in it being forcibly pulled from shelves. I would love to see a societal move away from her work by choice, as we all collectively realize that there is a wealth of better work out there. Not for that move to be forced by my local or state or federal government. And honestly, how dare book banners, how dare these people make me defend Colleen Hoover's work? Yet another reason these people are on my shit list. Look, here's the thing about my hatred of Colleen Hoover's work, or really any banned books that I don't like. I am confident in the reasons that I don't like these works, that they are bad on a craft level, and I love to talk about that with people. I love to have these conversations that we can discuss line level writing and word choice and plot devices and like narrative structure. And I'm very confident in my own opinions about what I think about those things, even when I think they're very bad. I do not require a ban on these books to keep people from questioning me on that. Please, by all means, go read it for yourself, and then we can talk about how much it sucks. But that is the fundamental difference between, say, a normal person and a book banner who wants to tell you that something is bad, that it's wrong, that it's evil, that it's harmful to children, and then take away your ability to have your own thoughts about that. Just trust me. Just trust me. It's bad for the kids. Just trust me. It's evil. Just trust me. Don't come to your own conclusions. Even the things that I think are genuinely bad, like the way that Colleen Hoover depicts domestic violence and that whole relationship and it ends with us. I would much rather somebody be able to read that book and then we can have an actual conversation. We can actually form thoughts about these things. But who knows, maybe I'm the outfield one for not wanting to ban things like critical and complex thoughts.
Hi, my name is Sheena, and I am a bookish content creator. I'm known as She Be Reading on all of my socials. Now, admittedly, it took me a while to figure out what was my least favorite book that has been challenged and or banned, but I finally figured out which one it is, and it's actually The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Great Gatsby has been surrounded by controversy pretty much ever since it was first published in 1925. and that's due to depictions of alcohol use, usage of profanity, and implied sexual activities. And I know that it's one of the great American pieces of literature. However, I could not stand how F. Scott Fitzgerald portrayed the character of Daisy Buchanan. To this day, the most cringiest scene in that entire book has to be in the dressing room where Gatsby was showering Daisy Buchanan in his luxurious and expensive shirts. Why? To me, Daisy Buchanan in that novel is just very much one-dimensional, zero depth except for the fact that she is materialistic. And I found that really frustrating, and I will never not read that scene in the closet and not cringe.
Hi everyone, my name is Carmen, and I love to read and review books by Latinx authors. If you are looking to diversify your reading and expand your bookshelves with some Latinx books, you can find me as @Tomes and Textiles on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. I want to take a moment to thank Rachel not only for asking me to collaborate on this video, but for her tireless work against censorship in Hillsborough County schools. You are an amazing advocate, and I'm so proud to call you a friend. Today I'm here to talk about my least favorite banned book. That is Out of Darkness by Ashley Hope Perez. This is a historical YA fiction about a love story between a Mexican girl and a black boy in 1930s South Texas. If you did not know, in the 1930s, South Texas not only had a racism problem with African Americans, but also with the Hispanic population. There were lynchings, there was segregation. The story in Out of Darkness was inspired when Ashley found out about a school explosion that occurred in South Texas in the 1930s. And she found out that not only was this a historically black school, but that there were Latinx students inside the school when it happened. It caused her to question not only the representation that she had seen in Texas histories that she had learned in school, but also to expand and think about the stories that might come from a population that was often left out of newspaper stories, of histories that were collected and histories that were told in textbooks. One of the things I did not like about this book is how brutal it was, particularly towards the end. Definitely trigger warnings for murder and lynching and just brutality to the human body. But the thing is that brutality is the history. And even though this is a fictionalized account of what may have occurred, it is something that captures the reality and then extends it for the purpose of the story. Out of Darkness is banned in Escambia County, not only for its brutality and violence, but also for its depiction of the history that I am discussing. And so even though this may not be my favorite banned book, it is one that's important that it remains on bookshelves to perpetuate learning and understanding of history so that we can move forward.
Hi, my name is also Rachel. My channel here on YouTube is @ReadingFairy. Today I'm here to help chat about some banned books. I do enjoy reading banned books. Most of the time I enjoy them. One book that I did not enjoy, however, is The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. I had to read this in college as part of an American literature class that I was taking. I think I was a freshman at the time. And despite the fact that I hated this book, I think it did foster some really great discussions in that class. The Catcher in the Rye is a story about a boy named Holden Caulfield. It's essentially a coming-of-age story about this teenager after being kicked out of school. It centers a lot around Holden's rebellion and having to leave behind childhood and not wanting to grow up. He also grapples a lot with grief though, because his younger brother died, and because of that he's very depressed. This book came out in 1951 when a lot of these topics were still taboo. It's been banned for reasons such as a heavy use of profanity, portrayal of sexual encounters, banned for racism, and this book was also banned for supposedly being anti-establishment and anti-authority. Some banners also said that the depiction of Holden's depression was triggering and harmful for youth. This book has been banned many, many times, but to name a few, in Wyoming in 1986, it was banned from classrooms. It was removed from schools twice in North Carolina, once in 1987 and again in 1989. In the same year, it was also removed from California schools, so in 1989. And it was also very publicly banned in Tulsa, Oklahoma in 1960s from all high school classrooms. Personally, I found Holden Caulfield to be one of the most annoying characters I've ever had to read. He judges the people around him at every turn, and he's so critical of people, like literally so judgmental. I also think he's a hypocrite. I also don't like the way that he treats women, people of color, and queer people. Despite my distaste for this book, I still think it should be allowed on school shelves. Holden is grappling with very real things like depression and grief. He's also a teenager on the cusp of adulthood, trying to find his self-identity and his purpose. I think overall the book does give off a cautionary tale of wanting to preserve your innocence from childhood and not wanting to grow up and be forced into this world that you're not ready for. It depicts a very real teenage experience of avoiding the inevitable, aka having to grow up. This was one of our main discussions in my lit class. I very vividly remember it because there were some people in that class who did love it. Not everyone is going to like this book, and that's okay. I still think it should be in schools. This book could really help a young person who's struggling with depression or grief, someone who's just lost a family member, or, you know, experiencing existential dread about having to go to college. I feel like that is such a universal teenage experience that I don't see why we would want to remove depictions of that from our classrooms, especially since navigating the transition into adulthood is not an easy task. I also think that because this literature is older, that it's really important and a great example of the social commentary back then. The pressure of living the American dream and what that looked like in the 1950s and 1960s. I also think it's important to discuss older literature that's racist and sexist and homophobic. I think it can help foster really great discussions in classrooms about human rights, how far we've come as a society since then, and how far we still have to go. Again, just to reiterate, I did not like this book, like at all, but I did enjoy the discussions that I had in my class about it. It made some people in that class with me uncomfortable, and I think it's really important to read uncomfortable things because they can help teach us something. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll remember it's okay to read books that make you uncomfortable because they are a great conversation starter and they can help us show what we still need to learn as a society. And that's all from me today. Thank you, Rachel, for having me.
Hi, I'm Jeanne, also known as Fangirl Jeanne, and I want to talk about my least favorite banned book, and that is Go Ask Alice by Anonymous, aka Beatrice Sparks, published in 1971. I don't like this book because it's poorly written, contrived propaganda, and it's super dated, along with the issue that it is, even now, still in many circles, depicted as if it's a real story of a teenage girl when it's not. It was made up by an adult woman with a very specific agenda, but also it's just trash. Since this book was published in 1971, it has faced banning in multiple states in America, and even to this day, it still faces banning. Most recently, in August of 2024, in 2 different schools in Florida, it was banned. So a big reason that this book constantly gets challenged is the content, where it's depicting things like teen sex, pregnancy, sexual assault, drug use, etc. But I think that also is a big reason it shouldn't be banned because of how contrived and very obviously written this book is, where it is very obviously an out-of-touch adult trying to kid talk about these things in order to scare them away from talking about these topics, much in the way that book banning works. It unrealistically thinks that if kids don't ever talk or read about these topics, they're never going to encounter these things, which is absolutely untrue. So I think being able to open up a conversation in a non-threatening, very fun way of making fun of the book in the way that it's depicting or talking about these topics, and get kids to open up about what are their real experiences with these types of situations, or how would they behave or react, what are the choices they would make. It opens it up to be able to better educate them with realistic information and ideas to like how to tackle these things, how to deal with peer pressure, what are drugs actually like, what are the things that you can do to avoid them, why they're a bad idea. It puts both the educator or parent on the same level as the kids of both making fun of the book, but then leading into more important and valuable conversations. Because again, not talking about these things, not reading about them, does not protect kids. And it does not arm kids with the knowledge and information they need to be safe.
Hi, my name is Kierstan. Today I want to talk about Looking for Alaska by John Green. I read Looking for Alaska for the first time back in 2014, and I wasn't a huge fan. Although I do think John Green is a great writer and a great storyteller, this one just wasn't for me. It's a story about a teenage boy going to boarding school and experiencing a lot of things for the first time. Experiencing being in a friend group, experiencing learning how to navigate that, being away from home, experiencing a lot of things that teenagers do, and how he responds to it, how he responds to grief, all of those things. And although I do see the importance of stories like this, it just wasn't for me. When I put it back on my shelf in 2014, I didn't think about it again until my teenager picked it up and wanted to read it. And it's one of his favorite books. And I loved seeing him read it and experience it and see himself represented in the main character, and seeing a lot of the peers, like a lot of the side characters, going through a lot of the same things that his peers were going through. And so he found a lot of value in this story, and I love that for him. Now, this book is regularly challenged in school districts across the United States and has been on top 10 banned book lists in school districts since 2012. It was even challenged by Moms for Liberty in his hometown in Florida for its content. And that's what this book gets challenged most often for, is for its content. Things like language, smoking, drinking, alcohol, sexual content, and LGBTQIA content, and has been banned by multiple school districts across the United States in states like Tennessee, Utah, Virginia, and Indiana. And I think it's so very important to allow teenagers to have the space to read stories like this, to read someone their age experiencing these things and how they react and how they respond, because teenagers experience these things on a regular basis: peer pressure, loss, grief, all of those things, liking someone for the first time and how those feelings evolve, and when that doesn't pan out, how they deal with it. I think those are very important lessons and stories that kids should learn about.
My least favorite banned book is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I hate it. I hate everything about it. Very simplistic poetry. I find it boring, but it shouldn't be banned because I don't believe any book should be banned. More than that, I don't think it should be banned because it's a great gateway to poetry for a lot of people. And I think that's really important. It gets people into poetry. Poetry is a huge tool of resistance. It's a huge tool of expression, of healing. I think it's really great that it gets people into poetry. I don't believe any book should be banned, because if we can decide one book can be banned, we can decide any book can be banned for any reason. But also all the bullshit book banning stuff it's so obvious. The reasoning is there are minorities in this book. Oh my god, how scary. No book should be banned. Not even Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. Get out and read some poetry.
My name's Carter Kalchik, and the two banned books that I am bringing you are Angels in America by Tony Kushner and All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. These books are both capital I important for different reasons, and let's start with my favorite of them, Angels in America. Angels in America is a lot. It is a 6-hour two-part play that is about the HIV/AIDS crisis in New York, but it's also kind of about everything. It's about America at the end of the Cold War. It's about politics. It's about religion. It's just a whole lot. I saw the HBO miniseries version of it when I was around 16 years old and starting to question things about my sexuality and my identity, and it was very important not only in helping me see that there are queer people, but also to understand queer history, which is not something back when I was a teenager that was taught in high schools very frequently, and still is not taught very much in American primary and secondary education. Artistic expression of queer history is particularly important for us because we don't have access to a lot of queer elders because of the very crisis that Angels in America is about. Not only was Angels in America banned in 2023 in the Temecula Valley High School, but the drama teacher who assigned it was put on administrative leave. And this is a searing irony for this play, because all the way back in 2008, another school district tried to ban Angels in America, and the principal and the superintendent stood up and kept it in a curriculum, and they were ultimately backed up by their school board. So 15 years later, we are actually regressing as reactionary conservatives are taking over school boards, like what happened in Temecula, and they are encouraging and upholding book bans like this. Now let's turn to All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, which is not my favorite banned book. All Boys Aren't Blue is a very well-known book. It's why it's one of the most banned books in the country, but briefly, it's what Johnson calls a memoir manifesto. So it's part memoir, it's Johnson's life story told in a very raw, direct, moving way, and then the manifesto parts. It's essay writing that serves as instruction for young people, particularly young queer people, and some light agitation in a political, queer, radical direction, although nothing crazy. I've done a longer video on my TikTok channel getting into deeper criticisms that I have of All Boys Aren't Blue, but briefly, I think that for a book which is meant to be instructional for younger people, Johnson employs a lot of language and concepts without explaining them, and Johnson also makes the choice to dead name a relative who is no longer alive without their permission, and I think that that is a regrettable choice. But neither of those criticisms are the reasons why people are banning All Boys Aren't Blue. They're banning it because it's gay. And my criticisms of the book are in no way a justification for it to be banned. In fact, I think my criticisms of the book could make for very interesting conversation in a classroom setting, which will never happen in many places because it's being banned. And this is the most insidious thing about book banning. I hate that I am now wondering if I have to censor myself about books like All Boys Aren't Blue because I need to defend it from people who are trying to ban it. We should be able to have critical conversations about all kinds of books, but if we're like fighting for the lives of these books in schools and libraries, it has this chilling effect on any criticism of those books. I love Angels in America, and I'm not the biggest fan of All Boys Aren't Blue. And I think both of them belong in the classroom and in public libraries.
Hey y'all, it's Kelly from Brevard County, Florida, here to talk to you about my most favorite banned book and my least favorite banned book. Up until 2021, my school district had seen one challenge in the past 10 years, and all of a sudden we were being flooded with tons and tons and tons of book challenges. In the last 2 years, we have banned over 450 titles. In our county, we ban books in a couple different ways. In our case, some books are banned just at individual schools, and then some books are banned across the entire county. Even though you think you might know some of the most hot topic books, some of the titles are truly shocking. Also, if you think you've seen us in the news, you're probably right. We've gone viral more than a handful of times, including most recently in the country of Japan because we banned a manga because it was formatted backwards. Or at least that was the reason our school board gave. Least favorite and my most favorite banned book, starting with my least favorite. For some, this will come as a shock because I love all things World War II, but Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, it just doesn't rank really high with me. As much as I love World War II, did not love the pacing and structure of the book. The kind of jumping all around, the lack of flow, not a huge fan, even though I do think that the book is important to be read and the message of the book is awesome. It's just not one of my favorites. Moving on to what is my favorite, is a book that was challenged for the first time in California in 1994, which was a couple years before I read it for the first time in 8th grade. And it's The Giver by Lois Lowry. It's kind of dystopian utopia where everybody is treated exactly the same, and the elders who set up the society make all the decisions. So they decide who you're going to marry, if you're going to have kids, what your job is going to be, where you're going to live, what your family is going to look like. And when the 11-year-old male main character shows up to his celebration to find out what job he's going to get, he finds that he's going to be the receiver of memories, which is learning everything that had happened before the elders set up this new society, including its deepest, darkest secrets. Now, this is a book I read in the 8th grade and it has lived in my soul ever since. The parallels to what is happening in today's age are there. I firmly believe everybody should read it. I am not pro book banning ever, under pretty much any circumstances. Just because I don't love a book doesn't necessarily mean other people shouldn't read it. And yet that seems to be the narrative around book banning. I don't like it. I don't want my kids to read it. So your kids and you shouldn't read it. And quite frankly, that's un-American.
My least favorite banned book is Unpregnant by Jenny Hendricks and Ted Kaplan. I actually have a whole 2-hour-long video talking about how much I hated Unpregnant because I think that it made some jokes that were sort of gross, to me at least, and I did not appreciate the way that crisis pregnancy centers were depicted in this. I think it made a joke out of them instead of talking about a very real problem. And so for 2 hours, I talked about how that very real problem affects all of us, which I think the book failed to do. And I would have liked to see a more responsible conversation on the topic of crisis pregnancy centers and the insidious nature of anti-choice advocates. But just because I don't think, subjectively, that this book did a good job at that does not mean that the book should not be available for other people, because other people might disagree, and my word is not and should not be law. So Unpregnant is super not to my taste, and that's fine. There's nothing in the book that is harmful to minors. There's some stuff that's uncomfortable to talk about, and there's some jokes that I don't think are funny, but you would have to prove that systematically reading this book causes harm to minors in order for me to be okay with its removal. I don't get to choose just because I don't like it. I don't get to choose that other people can't read it, including other people's children. That's just not appropriate. My subjective feelings, my discomfort, does not determine what stays or what goes on shelves. I can only make that choice for me and for my own kids. I would let my own kids read it if they wanted to, but then I would feel compelled to be like, hey, since you're reading that, I just want to explain to you that some of the stuff in there is just incorrect about how crisis pregnancy centers work. But that would be me doing my job as a parent, which a lot of book banners could learn from. Because that's what really is demonstrated by all of them, is that they are just people who, even if they have kids, which a lot of them don't, consistently show themselves to be failures of parents. And I don't know why they have to make that everybody else's problem. Thank you again so much to everybody who participated in today's video. I am going to make this an ongoing series, so if I reached out to you asking to do this and you were like, oh shit, I never got my clip in, that's fine, just DM me. I would love to make this an ongoing series. I have other books that I could talk about that are challenged and banned that I do not like. The answer is always going to be the same. Just because I don't like this doesn't mean you don't have the ability to read it or shouldn't have the ability to read it. But really what this is about is the fact that there are so many books that you don't even know are being challenged by your neighbors. And I think you should know about that. And I think we should all talk about that. So if you would like to be a part of this, DM me or email me. I would love to collaborate as much as I can with the community and get the word out about censorship. Everybody is linked down below. Thank you so much again to everybody who participated. Please leave your least favorite challenged and banned book below. Share this widely so that people know what books are being attempted at censored or censored and why. And make sure you get in your local community and advocate for books and literacy. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Andy, Ashley H, Astra, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Homesick for Taiwan, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Eric D, John E, K, Kaleno K, Casey M, Catherine P, Katie M, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lek, Other Lek, Lily, Mataraptor, Max B, Megwin Rose, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Peggy Luhu, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, SMK, Steph, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Tori, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here in the new year and for being a friend. And I have to say a thank you to my Potato Starch Marxist patrons, and those are a third more powerful Lex, Alejandra, Alicia's last frayed nerve, Alistair, Althea, Amanda D, Angelica, Artie the Ninth, Ava, Beck, Blythe, Bookish by Jenna, Bookish Rabbit, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin P, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Celeste, Claire Online, Cole, Colleen, Corwin, Courtney, Darius, Danielle, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast in the Silco Apologist era. You know what? Yeah, I get it. I finally watched Arcane, so I get it now. Dorian, Dorothea is not like other girls. Draco Sean, Drive By Thinker, Dirkelsberg, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Aaron with 2 E's, Fiona, Gadarn, Halia Artisan, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, Helen P, Hrising, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kai Brecker, Caitlin M, Catherine M, Katie L, Katrina, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, KMTB, Laughing Cat Dog, Laura is Angry, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Morgan, Myth, Myth Lesbian, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Paige P, Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Plague Carrier, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Rhea, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sakuria, Saintbringer, Saki Alume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sheen Onion, Sean, Sophie, Stardust, T Delegati, Talia, That Nerdy Mystic, That One Cute Chick, This Is Not a Trap, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Trash Can Teddy, Triple M, Dido Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, and Writer A. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.